struggling to process cheating ex's treatment of me versus other woman. At the end of 2021, my first boyfriend now, ex cheated on me throughout the entirety of my relationship by having two relationships at the same time. Months of deception, gaslighting, keeping me secret but pretending not to, going on holiday with the other girl, being my first everything and lying about exclusivity, lied for a week after I caught him, etc. It was deeply traumatizing and hit some very core wounds. His other relationship was with his ex of 4 years who he knew since school. He broke up with her for 6 months and then got back together a week before he met me. She had no clue either. Till date, whilst we've had some contact over time, I have never received any actual sincere, reflective apology aside from the brief one he gave immediately after I caught him. In July 2022, 8 months after breakup, he texted with no hello or context saying we ought to meet to talk. Because I was still recovering, I declined. In March 2023, when I felt better, I reached out to ask what he wanted to say, as I didn't want to feel regret about not giving one chance and I wanted closure on my terms. He replied that he'd been open to talk in July, but the moment has passed, and it's best left where it was. I was incredibly hurt and it felt unfair, but I had to accept it. I deleted his number and thought that's it. Randomly in December 2023, he messaged me saying, with no hello or any context, I'm back home if you are free and willing to talk. I wasn't expecting it at all, and whilst I should not have responded, I was angry at the random 180 he'd done and felt a need to make that clear. I sent the following. Frankly, I'm still not able to comprehend what you want to talk or meet about and don't appreciate the lack of context, personal tone, or clear intentionality in this or previous messages when you asked to meet. I feel confused by the fact that earlier in the year you felt the moment has passed, and now you send this, and I struggle to see how you've expected I could even consider meeting when there's no real clarity or emotional reflection and accountability in any of your attempts to contact me. Without this, I can only really take this as another throwaway message because you feel like popping back in which, given what's happened between us, isn't welcomed and is inappropriate. He replied saying, fair enough. I am back home till the start of January for Christmas, after which I'm disappearing. I still think the moment has passed and am happy to leave things as are, but because you wanted to meet, I thought it would be interesting to talk about the past and present, even if it means throwing a chamber pot over my head. I didn't reply as I found his message weird, dismissive, and it didn't feel worth it as I didn't feel like an apology was coming. I left it at that and re-deleted all contact. A month ago, I found out he'd given me a low strain of HPV which had been dormant till now and caused discomfort, but Eve had treatment now. I reached out to tell him as I felt it was the right thing to do, and he responded for the first time with some small self-awareness saying, I'm sorry to hear there has been further trouble, and it is reassuring to know HPV can be tested for, and you have had the relevant treatment. I will get myself checked out as soon as possible. I also appreciate your message. It is kind of you to get in touch about such a thing, especially after my deceit. It was an okay response, albeit a bit emotionally detached, and I felt sad that he can acknowledge his deceit but can't sincerely apologize about anything wider, but I've given up wanting it, and he's not capable of it, so this is the best I can get. Maybe over the years I've said more than I should have, but it's been a very disorientating and traumatic 2.5 years processing it, and up till now I've kept feeling bad that he's tried to speak to me, and I didn't give it a chance, and lived with a hope he may apologize. However, recently I had contact with the other girl. I asked her if he'd ever apologized to her, as up till now I imagined he had. Whilst we both were cheated on, there was a double standard in the relationship due to their history, so I assumed as always he tried harder with her. It turns out he never spoke to her again, not even once. His parents apologized to hers in passing, but he said nothing. I was shocked by this, and have found it hard to process. I think my self-esteem is quite low, but I can't help but feel like his lack of words is because he was too ashamed to face her and respected her too much. In contrast, I was reached out to twice, rejected once, and been played with a fair bit with what he writes in the messages. I feel devalued again and second-best, thinking he thinks I'm easier to sort it out with by sending low-effort texts Whilst with her, he might see it as a more serious/upsetting conversation which he is too guilty to face. He might see the betrayals differently and sees his treatment to her as a deeper shame than what he did to me, which feels unfair given it was equally damaging. It makes me feel rubbish because despite knowing him for less time, I too went through immense trauma, and I wish he had never contacted me and respected me as much as her. And I feel like he thinks I'm easy or not as big a deal. I feel sick and like my experience is still not being taken seriously, and like I'm forever lesser in comparison to their big history, which really hurts me deeply and makes me feel SHD. I also worry I'm somehow weak and easy to play with when I've tried to resist him as best as I can and do things on my term. I know I sound weak and the advice is to leave it behind, but this has tapped into a wound and frankly I feel hurt and don't know what to think or how to process in an empowering way, or if I've done something wrong to give such an impression. I know in the end the outcome is the same. He didn't apologize to either of us, but it still feels confusing. I just can't figure out why he reached out to me when she was more important given they were together for longer. It's so illogical and I'm scared it's because I'm just not that big of a loss.